All right, hello everybody. I'm gonna try and run through my favorite service announcements from 2018 right up until reInvent. I'm gonna try and do this as quickly as I can just because I wanna make sure that you don't spend a lot of time watching this video and you spend time enjoying reInvent. This is an opinionated list, so I've taken out a bunch of stuff that I personally don't care about. This is mostly the services that I use day to day or that my customers that I work with use day to day. There's a ton of other stuff within AWS that I'm not gonna talk about here. There's a lot of different announcements. It's just I'm not exposed to them. I don't work with them every day. So keep in mind that this short list is still quite long, and there were even more announcements outside of that. So I just wanted to run through this. I don't remember who originally proposed this challenge. It might have been Corey Quinn or Ben or somebody else in the Community Heroes list, but someone asked me to do this, and I'm just kind of trying to fulfill that promise. So without further ado, let's get going. First, there was a new AWS Budgets console. There was also a new AWS Cost Explorer console, which are pretty related. Then there was Neptune that went generally available. There's the Registry of Open Data that went generally available and continued to add new repos, more and more data to it over the next several months. EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, went generally available. Translate went GA, and it added 417 different language pairs. That's a bunch of different languages and kind of translations that are really cool. Transcribe went GA, and Transcribe launched speaker identification, multi-channel audio, real-time transcription over WebSockets, although that's really only available in Java right now, but you can write your own kind of SDK for it, and I expect we'll have more later. EBS had elastic volumes expand to magnetic drives as well as just the SSDs. And then there was the AppSync stuff. There were so many launches with AppSync, it was almost impossible to keep up. So they have this Amplify SDK that they made, and it's this Amplify library and CLI that just makes it really, really easy to get started with almost any kind of application. There's like 10 million other updates. They added Lex, pipeline resolvers, Delta Sync, Aurora serverless, everything basically. And then we launched AWS Application Autoscaling, which is really an amalgamation of all the different autoscaling capabilities of EC2, ECS, RDS, and DynamoDB, and you can manage all of those in one place. And in fact, if you want to auto-scale RDS at this point, you have to go into application auto-scaling, which is exposed through CloudFormation, and you create a little policy and you say, hey, scale these servers for me, which is pretty cool. There's S3 Select went GA. This is the ability to go and dive deep on individual files and get SQL query data out of them from CSVs and JSONs, all that good stuff. S3 Select got the ability to look at compressed stuff, which was pretty cool. It also got increased performance. S3 in general got increased performance, especially going directly to EC2. And then there was transfer acceleration and stuff that launched last year that continued to improve this year. We launched single zone. We have direct puts to Glacier now, so you can go through the S3 API and put directly into Glacier. There's selective cross-region replication, so you can make a policy that only replicates some objects cross-region. You can block public access, and there were a couple of other updates within S3 as well that I don't have time to go into because I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes. So new AWS Secrets Manager. SSM integration was really cool, so you could do pass-through, query a parameter, and you would get a Secrets Manager thing. There was RDS auto-rotation support, so for all of the different RDS databases, you can go in and be able to auto-rotate those. There was CloudFormation usage, so you can just have it auto-create and inherit those parameters for creating stuff within CloudFormation where you don't even ever have to look at the secrets. They're automatically generated. I thought that was really cool. And then the SDK got improved client-side caching, which makes it a lot more price performant and a lot faster. Then we get to X-Ray. X-Ray launched the Ruby SDK, the .NET SDK. It launched centralized controls for sampling rate, and it allows you to group traces now. Among the many other kind of cool little console updates and useful updates within the API that I don't have time to go into. Code Build launched shallow clones and support for GitHub Enterprise. It launched a local build agent, which makes it really easy to prototype your jobs locally. It's just a Docker container that you can run and do stuff with. Launched support for Windows. It has multi-input and output artifacts. The other thing with the local build agent is that you can actually run on premises. So you can expand Code Build to be run on-prem if you really want to. Code Pipeline added support for GitHub webhooks. I think it also supports Bitbucket now, just cross-region actions, so you can make deploys that go to multiple regions from one region, and significant performance improvements. So each transition now takes almost no time. It's basically instantaneous to go from, okay, we finished this line, okay, now we're going to the next line, whereas previously there's a little bit of a delay there. Code Commit supports creating and editing files via the console, and a number of other kind of one-off updates. CloudFront added elliptic curve DSA certs. Origin failover and WebSocket support, Origin groups too, which was pretty cool. KMS added FIPS 142 endpoints. Actually, this is really cool. There were a ton of FIPS 140 endpoints added to all the different services, which makes working in GovCloud significantly easier. And the reason you need these is because of auditors. Then there was CloudWatch, which added metric math, which lets you basically build these little alarms based on math from your other metrics, so you don't have to create and publish these metrics on the client side. The other thing that on the client side that really made CloudWatch alarms and metrics a little bit easier to use was client-side aggregation. So it would actually make it cheaper to push all this stuff up in batches as opposed to pushing it up instantaneously. That was pretty good. Certificate Manager launched Private CA, among many other kind of one-off updates. Athena added support for views, a JDBC driver, and you can now create a table as a result of a query, which is pretty cool. Comprehend had async and batch. Syntax analysis, which is basically going back to second grade where you have to pick out the parts of speech, verb, adverb, things like that. And custom classification just launched a few days ago. Connect, which is the call center as a service, launched single sign-on support with SAML, so you can take your federated auth and go directly into Connect. SSML support, so you can put in whatever kind of speech you want. That actually brings me to Poly, which launched a ton of new SSML features. SSML is the speech markup language, and it launched phonation, breathing, the ability to adjust speed based on how long the text is and fit it within a certain speed, a certain amount of time. AWS config launched managed rules. These are so common to me now that I did not even realize that they launched in 2018. I thought it was a feature that had always been there as part of config. They also launched compliance history, which is another feature that I thought was always part of config, but I guess it launched in 2018 and just magically appeared in the console, and it's continued to provide tremendous benefit to me. Then we get on to DynamoDB, which first they launched server-side encryption at rest, and then that was optional, you could turn it on, and now it's on by default for everyone. So they just kind of went into the back end and encrypted everybody's data for them, and there's no performance hit. Everything is just working like that now. I think that's amazing and kind of a really cool demonstration of the fact that the cloud constantly improves. Blows my mind sometimes. They launched DynamoDB Accelerator, and they launched the .NET, Go, Python, and I think those are the only SDKs they launched, but those are pretty powerful. They also launched point-in-time restore and continuous backups. I think I wrote a blog post about that. They launched an SLA, and then they have the DynamoDB local Docker image, which makes it a little bit easier to run DynamoDB local, because you used to have to type in java-jar dynamodb.jar, but now all you have to do is type in docker run, and apparently that's easier. I don't know. So then you get into ECS, and with ECS we added the task metadata endpoint. We added service discovery. That was a big deal. I think it'll continue to be a big deal moving forward. I just think there's a lot of really cool stuff to be done with service discovery there. Fargate added the ability to launch time, like cron jobs and event-based tasks. I think that's very powerful as well. It kind of lends a little bit of the Lambda serverless flavor into Fargate. Lex, you could start defining all of your responses and stuff in the console. More important than just in the console, you can actually define them in the schema of the bot, which means it's easy to import and export bots and keep the default responses in there. Still a little more work to be done around the import and export, in my opinion, with making sure the Lambda functions are a little bit easier to add permissions to, but they're definitely going to get there, I think. Route 53 had the auto naming API, which is vastly important and really allowed a lot of really cool stuff to be done. Service Health API, it got extended and added a couple of other integrations with the auto naming API. There was an interactive map. That was just a really cool console feature. I like the idea of being able to see where in the world my queries are going to be routed based on where in the world the query is coming from. And they launched a private DNS resolver. So Amazon Route 53 resolver lets you run your own DNS resolver within your network, which is pretty powerful. And this works really, really well for hybrid clouds or hybrid networks. So then we get into IoT. I don't use a lot of IoT. I've used it somewhat limited in a fashion. So they launched MQTT, like mutual authentication with a client certificate, and they had IoT core limit increases. They actually increased the limits for those messages and thresholds by they increased it twice over the course of 2018. And then they launched IoT analytics and general availability, and all kinds of good stuff happened there. That's actually like a whole full-featured service in and of itself. So then we get into Elasticache. In Elasticache, there was Redis 4.0, followed by Redis 5.0, and then you can now launch up to 250 nodes per Redis cluster, which is insane. I don't know who needs that many Redis nodes, but if you do, you're doing some cool stuff. And Redis added auto failover and backup and restore. We launched Corretto, which is our own JDK, because we do those things, and it's really, really powerful and cool, and we wrote a whole blog post about it. You should go check it out. And then we had Cognito, which added bulk user import. This is so important if you're coming from like another provider or you're coming from another user system. You want to be able to bring your users over without having to deal with a lot of nonsense. And this actually allows you to bring over the passwords, whatever, all the hash and sots and all the other good stuff that you need. Also launched auto user protection, which I thought was pretty cool, which is the ability to detect fraudulent logins using ML. So then we go into CloudWatch, which I think I may have already talked about briefly, but CloudWatch added custom dashboards outside of the console, automatic dashboard generation, which was really cool. The custom dashboards thing is really just a screenshot of the existing dashboard, but it's still very powerful, and you can do that pretty frequently. Then we get into EMR, which of course updated the latest versions of Hadoop, Presto, etc. Better support for Fleet and Spot and all those good things. The crazy cool thing that they just launched was EMR notebooks, and this is the ability to basically have a Jupyter notebook environment running on your EMR cluster. Then we get into RDS, and RDS went straight crazy in 2018. There were so many launches. You got read replica support for multi-AZ deployments across MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, all that good stuff. You can log all the different files to CloudWatch, so the slow query logs, all these other things in MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, all that good stuff again. All the different engine updates, Oracle, MariaDB, Microsoft Server, Postgres, MySQL, Aurora, Postgres, all of those different engines got upgraded to the latest, greatest minor versions, and major versions in some cases. DMS added support for SQL Server, so that's the data migration service. They got support for T2 and T3 instances. That really makes it a little bit easier to experiment and run developer workloads. You got fast database cloning, which was really, really powerful. That basically lets you take an existing database and get it running again within a matter of minutes, as opposed to having to copy, multiple terabytes over. Then you got Aurora Backtrack, which is the ability to go back to any single point in time, any single commit in the journal, all that good stuff, and say, hey, I want to restore to this point in time. That's pretty powerful too. You got Performance Insights, which is a whole kind of DBA on demand service. So you basically get the same, along with Performance Insights, they also launched Best Practices. So Best Practices and Performance Insights together basically give you a DBA, a database administrator as a service. I think that's really, really powerful, and it works across the gross majority of the engines now. Then there was, of course, Aurora Serverless, which everyone was really excited about. I think people are still excited about it. This is the ability to run an RDS instance or RDS cluster where you're basically sending commands, and if you stop sending commands, the server goes to sleep, and you're really only paying when the server is actually working, as opposed to paying for lots of idle time. Let's see. There was an Aurora cluster start and stop, which is somewhat similar to serverless, except you can basically quickly resume from running in Aurora. If you guys haven't had the chance to read any of Anurag Gupta's blog posts, and they keep a lot of state in RAM, and they can fast restore that. And since a lot of the compute is done on the storage layer, you can really get up and running with Aurora much faster than you would with MySQL or Postgres, because you're not having to load everything into RAM and onto the disk. We added IAM authentication for basically everything. We upgraded to 32 terabyte storage size. Aurora got custom endpoints, so you can make your own little endpoints within the Aurora system. There was a serverless data API that just launched, and that is the ability to go and make HTTP calls, so you don't have to worry about connection pooling in the MySQL driver, any of that good stuff. And you got the ability to run queries directly in the console. Moving on to Systems Manager, which basically got custom repos, patches, and packages, and Sessions Manager, which was really, really cool. This is the ability to go out and talk to all your different EC2 instances simultaneously and run different commands somewhat interactively. I thought that was really cool. Moving on to ALB, NLB, and ELB. ALB, NLB, and ELB are really, really powerful services. I mostly work with ALB and NLB these days. I don't do too much with ELB anymore. So you basically got the bog standard tagging features and filtering based on tags. You got NLB, got cross-zone load balancing, as well as inter-region VPC stuff. ALB added redirects and fixed responses. And one really, really cool feature is ALB authentication. So this is the ability to call out to Cognito or any other OIDC provider and say, hey, I want you to authenticate my user and store this session cookie for them. And if they're not authenticated, I want you to redirect them to for me. And you do all of this in the load balancer, which actually saves a lot of time and effort and compute. Then we go on to SNS, which got message filtering, among many other features, but message filtering was the one that was most important to me. And then we go on to EC2. And the amount of launches within EC2 is a little staggering. So let's see if we can work through this as quickly as possible here. All right, Spot got a 2-minute warning via CloudWatch events. You can let you fire off a Lambda if you want. You got Spot pause and resume. You got 5x network performance to S3. You got longer IDs, because that's a feature. It's really not a feature, but it's just something to know about because they changed the IDs around. And I'm curious to see who is going to be the last person to have short IDs running in their EC2 instance. If anybody wants to post a screenshot later of like, these are all my short IDs, that'd be funny, especially like 5 years from now. Anyway, we got EC2 Fleet, which is an existing API, but it got expanded and added more capabilities to add different heterogeneous fleets and instances. We got EC2 optimized CPUs, which is really just a way to deal with different capacity and licensing issues. We got bare metal instances went GA. We added the C5, M5, R5, R5D, C5D, M5D, Z1D, T3 instances, and as well as the U12 TB1 instances, which are just insanely large, huge amounts of memory. That's 12 terabytes of memory in one server. Really, really cool stuff, and those are bare metal instances. We got tag on create. Everybody thinks this is a tiny little feature, the tag on create thing. I cannot tell you how much time it saves, because it used to be you would make one API call where you'd be like, AWS, create this instance for me. And then AWS would say, okay, cool, I'm creating the instance. And then you would have to set a waiter condition, and that waiter condition would say, okay, the instance was created. And you'd say, okay, go and tag it now. But now you can create both EC2 instances and EBS volumes with tags when you create them, which sounds really easy and small, but it's actually super useful and it simplifies a lot of code. We got F1 instance updates that updated performance across the board. We got the SBE1, which are the Snowball Edge instances. We got, again, Systems Manager for Sessions Manager. That was really cool, where you could go and talk to all the different instances simultaneously. We got capacity reservations. We got spot savings view. We launched AMD EPYC processors. So there's a whole new suite of AMD instances. Multi-instance type ASGs. So these are autoscaling groups that can mix a bunch of different instance types, as well as a bunch of different capacity types. So this could be an on-demand, a reservation, a spot, all that good stuff. Amazon Elastic Graphics, System Manager got the ability to do custom repos, so you can distribute your software directly from System Manager, and predictive scaling for auto-scaling groups, which is just... Okay, moving on to CloudFormation. Aside from launching coverage for basically a bajillion things, thanks Chuck, we got macros, drift detection, and a new console. Macros are powered by Lambda. They're very, very powerful. If you are interested, I would strongly suggest you check out how you can extend your existing CloudFormation templates with macros. It's one of my favorite features from 2018. EFS. We got provision throughput, which saved a lot of people a lot of time and effort, because it used to be you would have to provision the entirety of your 16 terabytes or whatever in order to get the throughput that you wanted. So it would basically allocate more space to get throughput. But now you can say, hey, I just want a 1 gigabyte thing and I want this much throughput. And you got up to 512 blocks per file, which is also useful. VPC and networking. We got a ton of new Direct Connect locations. Direct Connect got the ability to balance data transfer out. So if you have multiple Direct Connect links, you could balance data transfer across them. And you also got the ability to do logical redundancy over a single virtual interface, as well as inter-region VPC peering, and bring your own IP, which people were very excited about, and jumbo frame support across Direct Connect and many other things, as well as DNS resolution over inter-region VPC, which was really, really useful for one of the things that I worked on this year. Then we go to Kinesis. Oh, I need a break. Into Kinesis, we got 10x higher call rates for KCL. We got KDA random cut forest and hotspot detection, KDA application limit increase, KDA time series support, Firehose support for ORC and Parquet output, GStreamer for video streams, HLS output for video streams. I wrote a blog post about that. WebSocket support and enhanced fan out. So this is the ability to provision additional kind of streams that can consume from Kinesis over WebSockets, which is pretty cool. Then we go on to Glue. Within Glue, we got support for the Scala programming language. We got support for reading from DynamoDB tables. I cannot tell you how awesome that reading from DynamoDB tables feature is. I love it. I love it. I love working with it, and it just makes a lot of the random stuff that I work on from day to day so much easier. Then we got the ability to connect to SageMaker notebooks. That was really cool too. Moving on to serverless, we launched support for Go, C#, .NET Core 2.1 or something now, I think. Node 8, SAM got open sourced. We launched a bunch of new SAM commands, SAM init, SAM build, all kinds of good stuff, all kinds of different ways of using SAM to basically invoke test events and run things locally. It was really, really powerful. Higher throughput for step functions, API gateway, private APIs, and thank you to the serverless overlords for SQS as an event source. I will name my first child Lambda after that. Method level throttles and API gateway, increased API gateway limits. So all of those limits that you were dealing with a couple thousand requests per second, all that good stuff got increased. You didn't even notice that. Lambda at Edge got access to request body, not just request headers, which is pretty cool. API gateway got X-ray support built in. You just check a box and all of a sudden you get your X-ray support. PowerShell Core launched as a language. API Gateway got multi-value parameters, which is really cool. It's a really random small feature that actually solves a lot of problems for me. 15-minute functions within Lambda, which is pretty powerful. Console updates, you got a new SLA. Async Lambda got double the payload size, so I think it went from like 128 KB to 256 KB. And serverless application repo got basically 1 million more resources, so instead of being limited to the subset of resources that were previously available, I think you can include CloudFormation macros, SQS, Route 53, everything now. So you can basically build full-featured applications that are able to do basically anything within serverless application repo. Then we got Python 3.7. That was super useful. There are a lot of really cool features within Python 3.7, like data classes and all that good stuff. And we got Kinesis enhanced fanout support for Lambda. Moving on to Private Link, where we got KMS support, and a bunch, basically every service added Private Link this year. I'm not going to go through all of them. Like literally every service added support for Private Link. And now Private Link works over inter-region peer VPCs. So moving on to Redshift, we got performance on short queries got better. That was just an optimization that we did for you, and you don't have to worry about it. You can now copy Oric and Parquet files directly from S3, no worries. Best practices and recommendations are now in the console, so that's basically, again, having a data scientist as a service. You can run queries directly in the console, and now you have the ability to elastically resize your cluster. So something that used to take several hours of downtime where you would shut down the cluster, you would resize it, bring it back up, that can now happen in a much more speedy fashion. Then we get into IAM, and the most important thing in IAM was definitely the launch of tags. But moving beyond tags, we also launched another really cool feature that I really like called permission boundaries. And there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about how good this is, and it basically allows you to define the boundary conditions for people to escalate and assume other roles. And you can do this in a pretty clear-cut fashion. I really like the way they ended up doing this, so good job, IAM team. Thanks for that one. Recognition got a ton of different improvements. Performance improvements, accuracy improvements, launched a, text detection got better. There were a whole slew of improvements. I'm not going to go into each one because it would take forever. You went from being able to do, I think it was 11 faces to 52 faces or something, or it's just an insane number of different improvements, which was really, really cool. And then we go to SageMaker, and SageMaker got support for auto-scaling. It launched pipe mode, which lets you basically provision a file descriptor for each one of your channels. So you can say /op/ml, name of the channel, and then you can open that as a file descriptor and read from it, and you can get data in like really, really fast. And you got automatic model tuning, which is just automatically hyperparameter tuning. That was just really, really cool stuff. Batch transform jobs, which basically allow you to bypass that hosting section of your container and say, hey, I just want to take all these records that are coming in from S3 or whatever, and I want to process them all as quickly as possible. So you bypass all those like 10,000 requests per second limits, and you can spin up as many containers as you want to go through it. You got warm start for hyperparameter tuning jobs that just launched, and Apache Airflow integration, which also just launched. Then the deep learning AMI, of course, you updated all the frameworks, and you got a bunch of updates with new frameworks. So you added everything from Chainer to TensorFlow like 1.9 and all kinds of model hosting good stuff. Just too many things to go over. In terms of algorithms within SageMaker, we got deep AR, blazing text, word detect, k-nearest neighbor, object detection, image classification, object detect, and IP insights, which is this new one, which is pretty cool for identifying the different parts of the systems that have maybe IPs that you would want to ban. This kind of a cool feature that I've seen used in different firewalls and in other places outside of AWS. We don't really typically worry about it that much within AWS. But anyway, in terms of compliance, let's see. Basically, everything got HIPAA eligibility. So everything from SageMaker to Fargate, recognition, step function, secrets manager, EKS, IoT core and device management, GuardDuty, Neptune, Amazon MQ, Translate, and ACM. The certificate manager, they all got HIPAA compliance, and then a bunch of others got PCI DSS and SOC and ISO, and tons of different compliance updates. Everything got better. And then we get into pricing, and we had a bunch of different pricing changes and reductions over the course of 2018. CloudWatch got tiered pricing. CloudWatch Logs did. S3 Bucket Check is now free and Trusted Advisor. Usage-based pricing on Chime. QuickSight got cheaper. Config rule price reduction, and API Gateway got tiered pricing. And those are my favorite announcements from 2018, and I thought I would be done with this in 5 minutes, and I definitely went way, way over 5 minutes. That was less than 1/10 of the total number of announcements that we had. We also launched a bunch of new services, everything from Secrets Manager to application autoscaling, and There's just a ton of really cool stuff, and I can't wait to see what happens at reInvent. I can't wait to see all of you wonderful people, and that is the entirety of my energy for today. See ya.